Hi, good evening, everyone. Good evening. Thank you for joining us on a Wednesday evening for this webinar on OPT, what to expect and regarding post-study work opportunities in the US. So we are just waiting for our guest and our speaker, Mr. Srikant Iyengar, to join us. In the meanwhile, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Rakhi Talukdar, and I'm part of the UpGrad Abroad team. And I'm so excited to see you all. And I'm really looking forward to a very interactive discussion. I'm sure everyone here who's joined us today is an aspirant for a US higher education. And I'm sure you have several questions on your mind if a master's in the US is what you're considering at the moment. So as we wait for our speaker to join us, I would just like to give you a little brief about how this webinar is going to go. So we are going to discuss on the topic, and as you can also see, and you can already feel free to start using the Q&A option on your screen and start putting down all the questions that you may have, so that as soon as the speaker joins us, we can be good to go. Right. So I can already see a couple of questions from the audience here. One of them is, I'm opting for a DBA from GGU. With this webinar be helpful to me? What is the best option after BDS in India? Want to do what to do in New York City? Absolutely. This webinar is what is definitely going to be helpful for you, because what the topic says is that it's regarding the OPT. And OPT, as some of you may be familiar with, and those of you who are not familiar with, is the post-study work visa. It stands for optional practical training. And it is essentially the tool that allows you to gain valuable US work experience and enter the jobs pipeline. Now, on that note, I can see that our esteemed speaker is already here on the call, Mr. Srikant Iyengar. And thank you so much for joining us today, Mr. Iyengar.
Rakhi, thank you so much, and call me Srikant. First of all, my apologies for being a bit late, but sure. I'm here now.
All right. Thank you so much. And thanks to our audience for also being very patient. Now, before we begin, of course, all of us here, as you know, we are aspirants wanting to pursue a higher education, particularly in the US. You all may be aware of the fact that the US higher education system is regarded as the best globally, drawing more than 1 million students around the globe. And India ranks #1, in fact, amongst the community of international students studying in the US. In fact, if we speak of August 2022, the intake of August 2022, there were approximately 82,000 student or F1 visas that were issued to Indian students. And of course, in all of this, the OPT, as I was saying, is a very vital tool, because it is the primary way which will allow you to gain valuable US work experience and enter the job pipeline. And if you do not have an OPT, most international students, they would have no choice but to leave the US and instead contribute their skills to other global competitors. Now, as all of you are aspirants, I'm sure you certainly want a chance to partake in the US economy. And on that note, we are very honored to have with us Mr. Iyengar, Mr. Srikant Iyengar, who is the CEO of Workforce Development at UpGrad. And he is also an expert on how international students can navigate the global marketplace. So once again, thank you for joining us. And I'm sure they are eagerly waiting to hear more from the horse's mouth. Srikant.
Well, thank you so much, Rakhi. And, it's good to be called a horse, I guess. But that aside, look, I think I'll start with a few thoughts and maybe you want to ask me questions. I would
Yes.
very much like for this to be quite interactive.
Yeah,
If it's okay with you, I'll spend just a minute talking about my background. So
absolutely.
look, for a lot of the people on this call, I can empathize with where you're at because I was exactly at that position about 20, just about over 20 years ago. So just to fill you in terms of my career, I started my career in India, worked for about 5 years with a company called ITC. Many of you would know it. And then I moved to the US in the early 2000s with a view to exploring the US market. That's when the tech services market was booming. But you've got to remember, I had no international experience. I literally landed in Newark Airport. I had a job, which helped, but I knew nothing about the US. And one figured it out. I lived in the US for about 4 or 5 years, and then I moved to Europe. I continued to visit the US on a probably at least 4 or 5 times a year on work. So it's a market I know well. I have a lot of friends there. So the first thing I just want to say is the US is the world's biggest economy, but it's also the place with, in my view, the most opportunity in the world. It's also an economy or and a society which is very merit based, and especially Indians who are qualified, people like you on this call, with the right mindset and the right skills, the sky's the limit. That is just that's my view. I mean, and like Rakhi said, there are thousands of students who go there every year. Some of them choose to stay there. Many of them carry that experience back to other parts of the world. Some of them have actually come back to India after 10, 15 years in the US and started world leading companies. So the career paths are manifold. But I'd say that being in the US, experiencing the US is important. But then the ability to transition from being a student to becoming a paid professional is a very important transition because you need that legitimacy, you need that experience. And to be able to do that, there are a few building blocks one need to put in place. So let me pause there, Rakhi. Maybe you want to ask me what areas we dive into and we can go into more detail or yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think you mentioned about the building blocks, which is what is the topic of our conversation today, because it is after a student goes to the US and they are on an F1 visa, and after their student status expires, they would ideally like to stay there longer to access the job opportunities, which you said are manifold. So my question to you would be, Srikant, that what is an OPT? I think I would like to start from the very basics. So what is an OPT or an optional practical training? And why is that such a crucial element in the student's journey?
Yeah. So look, when you are doing a blended program, you're learning the skills in your country of origin, let's say India, for example. But when you reach the US, you need that optional practical training to be able to translate those skills to work. Now, so OPT is like a bridge from what I call academics to paid work. And the way the visa is structured, as you all know, you can finish your academics within the first semester or so and then transition to paid work. And then you're allowed at least 2 more years of paid work after that. And so for a lot of companies, you are a wonderful way to build talent in-house because you're the right blend with some past experience, but also some very cutting-edge skills. And therefore, the OPT construct is a good way for companies to find people who can hit the market or the job running with some good skills. And the ability to work paid for 2.5 years is a very, very, big ability. Let's think about someone on this audience, and I'm sure there are many of you who are probably working in tech services companies today. You've spent about 3, 4 years, let's say, working with a Cognizant or an Infosys or a Tech Mahindra or a Sonata. You're probably waiting for the H-1B lottery to figure out whether you get an H-1B visa to the US or not. And that's chance. Whereas here, with the right program, with the OPT, optional placement training, you're getting to go to the US, experience that market, transition to a paid role, and then do that for at least 2 more years and probably longer. So that's why I'd say an OPT is a very attractive journey or a path to sort of experiencing the US.
Absolutely. I think very rightly mentioned because it is a bridge, because essentially an OPT is a temporary visa, so to say, which is directly tied to your student status. And of course, if
Right.
you would like to stay there longer, you would have to get a temporary work visa like the H-1B, as you've mentioned. Now, here, Srikant, you also mentioned something, and this is a point which I think when it comes to the US, it's commonly brought about this topic. The bifurcation between STEM and non-STEM fields, STEM as in science, tech, engineering, mathematics, and non-STEM fields. I would like you to and briefly touch upon the career landscape for both these domains. And secondly, when we speak of STEM, of course, with the emergence of Industry 4.0, there are expected to be several roles that will emerge at the intersection of, humans and machines, so to say. Now, of course, this means that a lot of people are opting to pursue STEM career choices, but there is always a conundrum on which is the best place to pursue a STEM career. So, would you say that US indeed enjoys the spotlight for being a STEM hub, and why is that so?
Yeah. So let's take a few data points, right,
Yeah,
on companies. I mean, all of you know the top five most capitalized companies in the world. They're all technology companies. They're
yeah,
Apple, they're Microsoft, Google, Facebook, Amazon. And Amazon is a logistics e-commerce company, but it's a predominantly fast-growing cloud-based business. And
yeah,
then there's Nvidia, which yesterday became a $1 trillion company. All
yeah,
of these are tech companies. All of these are based on the west coast of the US. So the US is by far the world's biggest tech hub in terms of pure innovation. You can
yes,
look at it in other statistics as well. If you look at the VC investments, biggest in the US, but the West Coast is not the only option. Remember that at the end of the day, technology is used by enterprises, by corporations. Banks are the biggest spenders on technology. Today, banking and financial services firms spend somewhere between 7 to 8% of their revenue on technology. So if you're JP Morgan, for example, and I know this from JP Morgan, the US's largest bank,
hmm,
they spend $15 billion a year on technology, $15 billion. Okay. And that's one bank. So there is a lot of technology opportunity on the East Coast because most of these banks tend to be based along the East Coast, either all the way from Boston to New York to North Carolina. But that's not all. If you go, for example, to Texas, Dallas and the hub, there's a lot of oil and gas. UT Austin is a big university. There's a lot of innovation activity there. You've got really cool tech companies like Dell based there. You have VMware, etc. At the same time, if you go to the Midwest, you go to Chicago or Detroit or Minneapolis, and I'm covering the whole geography so you get a sense. You've got some world leaders. You've got Caterpillar. You've got other such companies. You've got Honeywell. So technology is a big industry. I mean, in the US, you don't have to join a tech company, but every American tech company today is a global company that uses technology and brings career opportunities. Now, that being said, let me not say there's no role for non-tech, STEM versus non-STEM. To me, right, any any role today involves some technology, involves some data, involves some non-tech skills. So, obviously there are enough and more opportunities, but if I had to choose, let's say it's a last ball situation between CSK and Gujarat Titans, between STEM and non-STEM, I would probably say STEM because I think, there is more investment going to tech. That's the reality. Chat GPTs come on board. But yeah, I hope that answers your question, Rakhi. So
no, absolutely. And I think, you've already answered what was my follow-up question because US, like you mentioned, is a tech hub, but there are 50 states and some cities or some areas are, of course, more well-known for their tech landscape, whether it's Silicon Valley, which I think is a term that all of us are familiar with, and it's a dream destination, or whether like you covered in Texas, Boston, which is emerging, or Seattle, so on and so forth. And like you said, I think that's a very valuable point because 4 5 years down the line, no matter what career we are in, we will have to adapt to stay relevant. I mean, we would have to have certain kind of technical skill sets. Now, the when it comes to the STEM and non-STEM fields, the OPT also happens to be, let's say, a point of discussion here because in the US, the OPT for non-STEM graduates is 1 year, and for STEM graduates,
It's
It's
2 years
1 year, but it's
plus. Yeah.
extendable
Yeah.
by 2 years.
Yeah. Exactly.
And why is that so? Does that mean that this is the most opportune time to go to the US also?
Yeah, see, partly you've got to understand that, it's a function of supply and demand.
Yeah.
Not many Americans go to university. I think the number is probably one in three. And this is for bachelor's programs. Even less
Right.
Americans go to master's programs, right?
Right.
I think my guess is out of every five people who do a bachelor's program, probably one goes to a master's. So it tells you. And so when on one side, when you've got the world's largest economy, which needs technology, but on the
Yes.
other side, you don't have the supply of skilled talent domestically. You need
Yes.
to find the talent to fill the bridge because the need is not going to go away, right?
Hmm.
And today, the best source of talent in the world is Asia, and especially India. India has a large population of very smart, and we are
Yeah.
privileged to have many of them on this call, young, hungry people with the right attitude who want to work hard. So, that
Right.
bridge is created. So there is the opportunity for STEM skills in the US. Now, let me take some questions that are also there on the chat,
Yes,
right? People are talking
absolutely.
about how to find a job after the master's in the US.
Yeah.
I think that's critical because at the end of the day, you're doing all of this upskilling because you want to find a job, you want to get paid, and you want to progress in your career. Absolutely valid.
Yeah.
So what we as UpGrad will do is create the opportunity for you to interview with these companies. So as you know, we are a B2C business, but we also have a very strong B2C business relationships with some of the biggest companies in the world where we skill them. And we have been actively talking to them about the fact that our learner base is a very rich pool of talent for them to hire from the OPT and then ongoing basis. So
Yes.
we will create those opportunities. It could be jobs we post on the internal job board. It could be interview sessions we create when companies want to hire. But I do want to say that the onus of converting that job
Is
lies equally on the candidate. That's very important.
hmm.
And this is no different from anywhere else in the world because, you know, the client is going to evaluate you at the end of the day. They're going to look at, are you the right person? Do you fit the culture? Do you have the right skills? Most importantly, do you have the right attitude? And you can demonstrate attitude by preparing, being on top of your skills, understanding your client's business, understanding what it is that you want to progress on, and building a coherent story. So I think preparation is important. So, Jagmeet, to answer your question, we will assist finding that job, but the onus is equally on you as a student to find that job. It's also important to focus on networking and building a community in the US. I'll touch on that a little more. We've got another question about
Yes.
cost for higher studies and the loan. Do you want to take that, Rakhi, briefly?
Cost for higher studies and
Yeah,
the
so
loan.
I'll give you a sense of the cost. I think, look, in terms of cost, if you're an international student who goes straight to the US, you could probably end up paying for a purely campus program, say about $60,000 to $70,000 a year.
Yeah.
So if I translate that into Indian rupees, ballpark, I think you're talking about 50 lakhs a year. That's a lot of money. At least for me, I come from a middle class family. That is a lot of money.
Yes.
But with the UpGrad program, we've disrupted it so that when you go to the US, you hopefully will start earning faster and the fees are lower, which means that you have less cost and faster paths to earning, which is important. So that cuts your sort of cost. As far
Absolutely.
as loan facilities are available, there are some. I think, Rakhi, maybe we can touch on that. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I'd be happy to do that. So, in terms of loan facilities, you do have loan providers, third-party providers, and UpGrad also assists you in getting loans from providers like Empower or Prodigy. And there are two types of loans essentially. You have your collateral loan and you have your non-collateral loan. Now, collateral loan is a loan which you are given on the basis of some tangible asset. It can be a residential property, a commercial property, it can be an FD, and it depends on what is the value of the property, and other considerations like who has the title to the property should be your blood relative. You should not have an existing loan. If you do have it, then at least you should have the amount to cover your expenses. Then the other more important thing is the non-collateral loan, which is completely dependent on, and the providers give you that loan basis what is your earning potential after you graduate. And that depends on which university you are going to, what has been your academic credentials so far. it also depends a lot on the course that you're going for. And some courses are more favored, let's say STEM careers, like Srikant has mentioned, because it is assumed, and it's not just assumed, it's in fact, it is a fact that STEM careers have a larger earning potential. So all of that is there. And of course, that's a very different topic altogether. And we at UpGrad Abroad, when we assist you with the program, we also assist you with the financial expertise and enable the whole process for you. So there is a whole team that takes care of it, and we'd be happy to assist you with that. Yes.
So Anjali asked a question about part-time opportunities while studying for a
Yes.
master's. Like I
Yes.
said, we're obviously, talking to a lot of companies, many of whom in the current economic environment are also looking for interns or part-time employees who can help them on specific projects, whether it be around data consolidation, whether it be on specific tech areas. It could be certain non-tech areas as well, such as finance consolidation and so on, for those who've got non-STEM skills. So those opportunities exist. We will try and create a pipeline of those opportunities that we make available to our student community. That's a
Right.
commitment we make. But obviously the focus is also to try and get you to a full-time opportunity as soon as you become available, because that's important for you and for us, right?
Right.
Just going down the list, I think someone's asked about higher study. After completing higher studies, is a PR possible? So look, obviously that's the
Very
intent for people
yeah.
who stay in the US, but that is beyond the remit of UpGrad. We will sponsor your student visa for up to 2 years post the master's. And at that
Yes.
point, if your employer will probably transfer you over onto a visa that they sponsor, and then the process becomes their and your responsibility. But I do know of people who've gone to do that and have registered for the green card process, and in the future possibly towards citizenship. But that is a long process that we cannot comment on because there are a lot of factors that go into it.
Right.
Vanshika asks, what elective courses do you recommend? Okay. Very interesting question. Look, first of all, I'd say if you look at the three biggest tech STEM areas that are in demand today, if you call it that, obviously there's cloud, there is AI and ML is big in that sense. Anything to do with AI, ML, especially now currently with ChatGPT, that is a big focus area. Traditional software dev around full stack dev, etc., is also very important. Data, very critical. I think the data world is just being explored as we speak.
Right.
But in the US, I would also recommend a few other electives if there are. And the good part about an American degree is it lets you take multiple facets as part of the same course. It's slightly different from how degrees in Europe or India are structured, where to a large extent, if you're studying a particular function, most of the electives tend to be within the domain of the function, whereas an American degree is expansive, and our courses are designed like that. So I would say you may want to think about things that differentiate you. So for example, if you have an ambition to work, let's say, in the automotive industry, picking something around electric vehicles in addition to your core skill may be useful. If you want to study in or work in finance in the future, something to do with financial analysis, planning and analysis may be useful. So I'd say it depends on what career you want to build. Then Merlin asks, can I move jobs under the OPT visa? And if yes, what is the interval of time?
Yeah.
I think that's a good question. I believe one can move jobs. I think, Rakhi, you have to confirm, but there's a very small window. I think it's either 1 month or I forget. It's something like that. But so I would strongly recommend that, if you're on an OPT visa, if you've got a job, I would say hold the job, because America is a hire and fire market as well. So,
absolutely.
I would suggest taking caution, or discretion is the better part of valor in this case. Yeah.
Right. Right. On that note, Srikant, since you spoke and the audience's question, I think it's very valid. And I think a lot of people would be concerned about the timeline, because if we speak of the OPT, then there is a certain window, and it cannot be submitted earlier than 90 days before, let's say, you graduate. And their employment start date after the student graduates should not be later than 60 days after the course completion date. That means they have a very strict timeline. And ideally, like you've also mentioned, they need to get started as soon as possible. So what would you suggest should be their plan of action, and how
Yeah.
soon should they get
Yeah.
started? Yeah.
So my suggestion would be that, look, first of all, do a lot of homework before you even get to the US. Obviously, you're
Right.
going to do a bit of homework on how you settle in. It's a new country for you, how you live, etc., etc. But also start thinking about what it is you want to do once you complete your course. And you can do that homework from India or wherever you're based today, because you can Google, you can research companies, you can ask questions, etc. Once you hit the US market, have a clear plan of the 3 or 4 areas or industries or kind of roles you want to focus on. And frankly, I would say try and network in those communities. There are lots of communities where you can network, you can meet other people. There are lots of foreign students on these campuses, and it's a collaborative environment. They help each other. Ask questions. One thing about America is people are not shy. People ask questions. The average American is very confident of themselves, and that's something we've got to be as well. There is no such thing as a wrong question. You might get an answer you don't like, but there's nothing wrong in asking a question. But you've got to go out there and ask that. You've just got to go out there and ask that. So, I'll quote a very famous American sports player. There's a legend called Wayne Gretzky who played uh, uh, ice hockey, which is the US's third most popular sport. And Wayne Gretzky is a legend in the industry. He's like Sachin Tendulkar in cricket. He said that you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. Okay, so you've got to take the shot. You've got to ask the question. That's very, very critical. And then I would say that, look, you've got to keep active, engage with UpGrad. We've got people who are working with you to help find those jobs. Please engage with them. Be proactive on having a CV ready. Be proactive on, for example, interview prep is important. We will help you as well. But if people ask you questions like, what are the difficult projects you've done, you've got to have those things ready, etc. Right? So that sort of makes a lot of sense. It's all about preparation, and that preparation starts from India. Hopefully that touches on the points, Rakhi.
Right, absolutely, Shrikant. And I really like that quote you used. You miss 100% of the chances that you do not take. And I think also the challenge that some of us may face is because, we at India are very used to the on-campus recruitment model. You graduate and you choose a university basis their placement rate, and you're certain that some companies will definitely come on campus. But like you mentioned, in the US, you have to navigate the landscape completely on your own.
Yeah,
And even if you are, let's say, an Ivy League graduate, there is nobody waiting at your door to, I believe.
absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
So let me highlight that, right? It
Yeah.
doesn't matter even if you were a student at Harvard. I know people who've
Yeah.
gone to Harvard Business School. There is no such thing as a placement week even at Harvard.
Correct.
Placement starts all the way from before summer training, and people are finding jobs all the time. They're talking to companies on their own. And remember, you may think that because one has gone to Harvard, one can walk into a company. But the reality is there are 800 other people with you studying on campus. So you've
Yes.
got to differentiate yourself. So I would say that's very, very important for any course that you take. You
Yes.
own the process. UpGrad will support you all through the process, but you've also got to be fully engaged. I think that is critical. Let
That's
me touch quickly on a few other points, right? I think
sure.
cumulative finance careers after an MS in data science, very
Yes.
lucrative careers. I think, especially the financial services space, insurance space, a lot
Hmm.
of companies are being powered by data and financial. If you have like a financial qualification and the MS in data science, I think there are very lucrative careers to be had there. Uh,
Right.
and then someone's talking about management consulting. Well,
Yes.
I would say that if you want to go to management consulting, an MBA is probably the best option, for the
Yes.
simple reason that management consulting, by definition, whether it's strategic consulting like a McKinsey or a Bain or operational consulting, is a function of working through unstructured problems and finding a structured solution. And the course that probably does that best is an MBA. I
Yeah.
think having a bit of a technology background helps, but you may want to do a master's in information management or data science, but an MBA, in my view, would probably be the best option.
Be the best option. Right.
Yes.
Right.
Let me take
Also,
a couple more. Sorry, go on,
yeah.
Rakhi. Yeah.
Shrikant, since somebody asked about management consulting, I think that a lot of people go to the United States, and because that's the gateway to some of the lucrative
Yeah.
consulting companies, like you mentioned, McKinsey or Bain. or BCG. Now, one of the things I wanted to understand from you is firstly, if they are going for a general MBA, that would definitely be a non-STEM career, which means ideally they'll get a 1 year of OPT. So once that expires, how would you suggest that a learner who, let's say, is going for any other non-STEM specialization like healthcare, how would you suggest they navigate the career landscape if their long-term goal is to get a temporary skill visa like the
Yeah,
H1B?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I think clearly there the choice would be to try and find an employer who has that ability to sponsor a visa post the
Right.
OPT. There
Yes.
are many American companies who've got investments in Asia who know the Asian market and use Asia as a source of talent for
Yes.
their US operations as well. So
Right.
finding those kind of global companies and engaging with HR and the talent management function there once you land the job is probably very critical, is what
Yes.
I would say. But clearly, like you said, in a STEM course, you get a 2 year window, and a non-STEM, you get a 1 year window. And so you want to probably
You
maximize your
want to
chances.
probably.
That's
Yes,
important. So
absolutely.
that's
Right.
critical.
Right.
Um,
Thank. Yeah.
no problem. Someone's talked about a few companies UpGrad has partnered with in California. Well, California has
California. Yes.
obviously got tech companies, but
Yeah.
California also has media companies. For those of you who are not very familiar, just as San Francisco is known for its tech, LA is known for all its media companies. You've got companies like Disney, you've got a few production houses, you've got Warner Brothers, you got utility companies like Southern California Edison. These are all companies that we're talking to, trying to create opportunities for you guys. And clearly,
Hmm.
we do partner with the hyperscalers as well. We're talking to
Yep.
AWS, Google, etc., trying to create the right opportunities.
Right opportunities.
Radhakrishna Kondi has asked about aerospace. He wants to
Yes.
pursue a
Absolutely.
master's in aerospace. I
Right.
think there are job opportunities for masters in aerospace, but you've got to remember that you can probably work on the commercial side. So if you take a Boeing, for example, Boeing has two clear businesses. They've got a
Hmm.
defense business and they've got a commercial business. Lockheed Martin, similar, and etc.
Yeah.
To work on the defense side, you have to be a US or a EU citizen because
Okay.
it's like in India. If you to work in defense, you've got to be an Indian citizen for security reasons. But
Hmm.
commercial, you can work, so that's an opportunity. But there are also a lot of other companies in the aerospace background that you can work with. So, for example, there are companies that build components for airlines. You could build a wing of an Airbus 320. You could build the seating pattern. You could build the IoT system that simulates air flights. And those are companies you could sort of work for.
Right.
Um,
Absolutely.
going very down, I'm an
Very down.
under.
I think we have some very key questions looking at the current climate. If you would like to
Yeah,
like
why
me
don't
to
you highlight some of the key questions? That
yeah,
would really help
sure.
me. So,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. Sure. So one of the questions is, Srikant, is there any effect on on a master's student due to the current recession, the tech
Yeah,
session, so to say?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes.
So, look, obviously there is a recession. Let's sort of not get away from that. In the short term,
Yeah.
there is probably a bit of a softness on the economic environment, but
Yeah.
I would call this a pause and I would not call it a crisis. So,
Crisis.
what
Yeah.
most companies are doing, and I'm not saying this just because I think so, I've spoken to probably about 50 companies in the last 3 months. I've been in New York. I've met people in DC. I've talked to people in Chicago. Um,
Right.
most companies are trying to figure out how the next 3-4 quarters will pan out. And therefore, what they've done is, while they figure that out, will interest rates go up? Will the economy
Okay.
slow down any further? They've paused hiring. So they've said people we'd hire this quarter, April to June, we'll probably hire July to September, and so on and so forth. But
Right.
what is very clear is that people expect growth to come back within the next 3 to 4 quarters. Now, I'm not a soothsayer, but that's the market expectation.
Yes,
And
yes.
there are data points that show that. If you look at the stock markets, after a hit, they've broadly sort of recovered. That's number one. If you look
Yeah.
at interest rates, they were going up. They're now likely to plateau, right? If you look at economic activity indicators, they still show reasonable employment. Yes, there is a US election next year, which means that both parties will want to show, at least the Democratic Party will want to show healthy economic environment going into an election year. So all of these things seem to suggest that, by the time some of you on this call are in the US looking for jobs, things should be, in my view, pretty good, right? And
Right.
don't forget that you are gonna be more skilled than most people in the US. You have
Yes.
experience of having worked in two continents. You've demonstrated that you have the ability to take risk in a good way because you moved from your home country to a new country and you've assimilated. You have a master's degree. You have
Yes.
technology skills. You're confident, articulate, young, hungry. I mean, these are put all of this together. You're a pretty damn good package. So don't sell
Absolutely.
yourself short,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, I think that's a very valuable perspective. And I think you've just taught us all how to sell our experience. Oftentimes what happens is that as students, we tend to undervalue our own experience here. We tend to discount our own experience here. And we just need to understand how it is that you need to position the experience, what I just gathered from what you mentioned. Also, Shrikant, this brings me to the next question that a learner has asked. And previously, also, we were talking about the MBA. That would you suggest it's preferable to do an MBA if you have a 3 years of experience, especially if I look at, um, MBAs in the US? Is it
Yes.
preferable to have work experience, or is it also okay if you are a fresher?
So my suggestion, and look, I went to a business school in India as well. I went fresh from college. I'll give you my
Yeah,
personal perspective and I'll tell you what I hear in the market as well.
right.
I think my personal perspective is to appreciate an MBA, one needs some experience because a lot of what is taught in MBA is very work related.
Yes.
And that's what I hear in the market as well when I talk to people. Because what does an MBA do? It doesn't teach you a core skill like, let's say, a STEM skill, but it teaches you a more holistic perspective. You learn a bit of finance, you learn a bit of organizational behavior. You learn about, for example, let's say management techniques around strategy and how you apply that in a certain context. To be able to make that learning real, having a couple of years of experience helps. I'd
Yes,
probably say that 2 to 4 years is probably optimal, and many business schools ask for that experience even as an entry criteria, is what I'd say.
as
Yeah.
an entry criteria. The prestigious business schools would ask for that as an
Yes.
entry
Yes. Yes.
criteria.
So I
Perfect.
wouldn't I wouldn't discourage someone who wants to go straight to an MBA after your graduation.
Hmm.
But I would say if you had the option of working for a year or two, you'd probably be better for it.
You'd be better for it. Yes, absolutely. Also, Shrikant, we have a next question from our learner. And the question is, how challenging is it to restart the career in the US after an MS? And the learner is in their late 30s. And they would like to know if it means that there would be fewer opportunities for them.
Yeah. So first of all, uh, age today is not as much of a number as it used to be earlier. And secondly, I think a lot of us who come from Asian backgrounds actually give age too much importance. America is much more of a meritocracy. They go by your skills, they go by your competence, they go less by your age. So going back to your question, I think if you've got a master's degree and you've got work experience and you're going back to do an MBA, I think that's the question. I think there is a
Yes.
lot of value in that.
Mhm.
The key will be to position that right once you're coming out of the MBA. You've got to have clear answers as to why you chose that MBA at that point in your career and why are you looking at it as a springboard to something in the future, right? I mean,
Okay.
let's take some examples, and I'm taking some
Yeah.
really well-known examples, but you take a Sundar Pichai or Satyan Nadella as well. Both of them did their engineering degrees from India, went to the US for a master's in science, an MS degree, and they joined as technical roles. And a few years later, they both chose to go on and do MBAs. Nadella went to Kellogg. I think Sundar went somewhere else. I forget. But
Mhm.
clearly, they chose to make that option work for
Yeah.
them. Of course, at that time, they did not know that they'd be the Microsoft or the Google CEO. So, you know what? You could be the next Microsoft or Google CEO. And I mean that in all seriousness.
Yeah. Yes, yes. Yes, that's very encouraging. That's very encouraging. Uh, Now, Shrikant, of course, US is the place that most people would want to be, but US is also very close to Canada,
Yeah.
and a lot of people want to. And I think you'd be the best person to answer this because you've had a very global career. You've worked in the US, and you've also had substantial work experience in the United Kingdom, if I am correct. So there is a learner who has a similar question, that they are currently doing their MBA from UK and they want to do an MS in data science or artificial intelligence to have a further career path in the US. So what kind of a career roadmap would you suggest? How do they make this transition?
Yeah, this is a good question. What I
Yes.
don't know is, does the learner have previous STEM skills before their MBA? But if they have those STEM skills, okay, the learner is typing an answer. So let's just
Yeah.
did the learner say something? I'm sorry, I missed that.
I think I picked up the question and I requested him
Okay,
to
that's fine.
answer
That's
that
fine. That's
question
fine.
for us.
So
Yes.
look, I think if you've got an MBA from the UK, doing a master's in data science in the US makes sense because it does two
Yeah.
things. It transitions you from the UK to the US. While the UK is a fantastic market, I live here. The
Yeah.
US is a much bigger opportunity in that sense. That's number one. And,
Right.
culturally, it's pretty easy for a British citizen to assimilate in the US in that sense because there's a lot of interchangeability and et cetera, et cetera. Number one. The second thing is, if you've got an MBA with some STEM skills when you do the masters, you obviously have you've got a more potent sort of let's say, a skill set that can be leveraged. I know a lot of people from the UK who move to the US market and after 5 or 10 years probably come back to Europe because they've had that experience of multiple continents. So that, I would say, that definitely helps. Getting a job is probably easier because, remember, unlike an Indian national or any national from Asia, as a UK citizen, I'm assuming that's what you are able to more easily get residence in the US. You're able to
Yeah.
work there, live there for longer. That helps. That really helps.
Okay. Perfect. I hope that has answered your question. And
Before you go
yeah.
on, there's a question on cybersecurity I missed. So
Yes.
let me mention
Yes.
that.
Yes.
So
Sure.
look, cybersecurity is a very, very hot, fast-growing area. Absolutely no question. It's a good thing. The reason I didn't mention cyber earlier when I mentioned AI, ML, data, etc., is because cybersecurity is a very specialized field, and there are, you've got to like that field to be in it, because unlike in other roles, cybersecurity, the key thing is anonymity, whereas in other roles, the key thing is visibility, and that's a difference. So there are certain people who like careers in cybersecurity. They're very analytical in scope. They're very forensic in nature. They like
Yeah.
the thrill of that job. There are some amazing options there as well. And also today with the global geopolitical situation, especially with state-sponsored cyber terrorism or cyber crime, cybersecurity is more important than ever. I'll give you an example. A few years ago, I was talking to one of my clients who is a Las Vegas, Nevada-based casino company.
Okay.
And they actually said to me that they got hacked, or they had hacking attempts more times per minute than even the Federal Reserve.
Wow.
So, it tells you, because everybody wants to get rich. We all want to get rich easy. And if you're a tech person, there are enough people in the world out there who try to break into the cyber Fort Knox, as you call it.
Right. Right. Thank you. I hope that answers the question for our audience. And, I think a lot of our audience here is from a tech background. So they have very specific questions. If you would like to take them up, Srikant, about, an MSCS,
Yeah.
Masters in Computer Science, and they are also a fresher. So what would you suggest,
Sorry, say that again. Can
them?
you repeat the question?
The learner has done a bachelor's in computer science, wants to do a master's in computer science further, but they come with no work experience. So would you say that it's ideal they do their master's from the US?
No, so if they're doing a master's in computer science, which is a continuation of what they study in undergrad, I think then you can go straight from college because you're still in the educational field. My point
Yeah.
about experience was more for the MBA and not so
Yes.
much for a technical skill.
Okay.
It is what I
Okay.
would
Not
say,
for
right?
technical skill. Okay.
And then there's a question about, is it possible to work in the US after completing an MSc data science in the UK? Well, if you completed your MS data science in the UK and you want to work directly in the US, you're going to need to find a company that sponsors you.
Yes.
But if
Yes.
you want to go through the student route, you will have to do a course in the US. So,
You have to. Yeah.
that's clearly the case.
And
Okay.
I think that would ideally be more easy. That's the
Yes,
easier
yes,
route. Yeah.
of
And
course.
I think a learner also had a question that if I'm pursuing a tech course, I would get 1 + 2 years of OPT, but do I get this extension if I do not have a job? Here, Shrikant, I would also like you to touch briefly upon, how the OPT has to be related to the field of study.
Yes, yes. So the OPT, first of all, has to be related to the field of study because visa rules are very clear. The OPT is provided that the student can benefit from the course that they've studied, and they're also contributing to the US economy in that field because that's what the visa has been granted for, right?
Right.
So that is important. So the job spec or the role spec will be connected to your area of study, and those are the jobs that we will curate as we make them available to you. That's number one. On
Okay.
your point about the extension post the 2 years, well, you've got to have that job and do well at it so that you can continue.
Yeah.
And then, of course, it comes down to the employer. So yes.
Employer. Yes, absolutely. Because the H-1B visa is employer specific, if I'm correct.
Correct.
And
It
as
is
you,
employer
yeah,
specific, it is role specific, and it is location specific.
and it is location specific. Wow.
Yes.
Okay. So that means that there is a certain quota. And if the employer only feels that you have the requisite skill they need and you are kind of indispensable, am I right when I say that?
Yeah. So look, if you've got the right skill and you
Hmm.
have the right proficiency levels in those skills,
Yeah.
and you can do well in terms of your interview, you're a good catch, as
Yeah.
they'd say. Now,
Yeah.
location, you got to remember that, you probably are an advantage to an American student because an American student, and Americans, by the way, relocate all the time themselves. They're a
Yeah.
lot better than Europeans who don't relocate as easily.
Hmm.
But you are an advantage because you are in a new country already. So whether you go to the West Coast or the East Coast, frankly, it's still 8,000 miles away from home, right? So it doesn't really matter. So yeah, yeah. Although I would say that weather does play a part, and I'm saying this in all seriousness. We talked a bit about
Yeah.
Canada. The
Yes.
northern part of the US, as we all know, is much colder than the southern part. I have lived in Detroit for 2 years, and for 4 months of the year, it snows. For those of you who hate the cold, you may want to, make sure you're mentally prepared for that because it takes a while to get used to. And the
Sure.
same with Canada. Same with Canada.
Same with
I'll touch
Canada.
on Canada because we did ask a question on that earlier. I think
Yeah.
Canada is definitely a fast-growing economy. It's very
Right.
welcoming to international students in that sense.
Yes.
Opportunities exist. The hubs in Canada are very clear. All the banks in Canada, Bank of Montreal, Toronto Dominion, Scotia Bank, they're all based in Toronto. That's a big hub. The other big hub is Vancouver because that's on the West Coast, very close to Seattle. It's a catchment area. You've
Yes.
got obviously a set of companies that are headquartered in Montreal and Quebec. But remember, Canada is a bilingual country. And especially in Quebec, you've got to speak French as well. It helps. So I'd strongly say if you're looking at Canada, it's a great option. But I'd say look at Toronto or Vancouver. That would be my suggestion.
Yeah. Right. So
Or
I
the,
think
the area,
yeah.
the surrounding area. Yeah.
Right. So ideally, learners who pursue their masters in US may want to go to Canada, and I think the opposite also happens. A lot of people
The
who pursue,
opposite happens. There are
yeah,
lots
the
of
opposite
Canadians
happens.
who come and
Yeah,
work in the US.
in the
Absolutely.
US.
No
Okay.
question. No question. Yeah.
Right. Right. Shrikant, I think we are almost close to the end of the webinar, and
There
I
is
can see that.
one question I do want to take. It says, how do you
Yeah.
think software developer roles will be impacted by advances in ChatGPT? This is a
Oh,
question that's quite
very
close
interesting
to my
question.
heart. So
Yes.
look, we're all
Yeah.
guessing here. None of us knows what ChatGPT will do to our lives, right? For all you know,
Yeah.
the next webinar could be run by a bot and you won't even know it. But here's what I would say that it's obviously going to impact, at least that's the industry perception in tech services. It's going to impact all the roles that are just about creating standard code, right? Which could be done by a bot. But the flip side of it is that the need to upskill to certain areas is been greater than ever because there are some problems that a human can solve that no amount of AI can solve because an AI by definition is based on past history. You know how an AI model is built,
Yes.
whereas a human brain can connect dots in ways that AI still can't and hopefully won't for the next 100 years. So yeah.
Yes. Thank you. I think that question is definitely a trending question. I think that's on everyone's mind. Uh, and I also think, just to add to that, that I don't know whether it will eat our jobs, but definitely there are going to be so many roles that will be created at the intersection of human and tech. And we would also, I think we cannot foresee it at this point of time.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, look, if I take an example, in the late 1900s, the biggest social crisis in London and Paris was the
Hmm.
fact that there was too much horse manure on the streets because there were so many horse carriages. And you just couldn't clean the streets fast enough to keep the roads clean. And people were concerned that someday these cities will get buried in manure. I mean it. I'm not joking. It's serious. And
Hmm.
then someone invented the automobile. And people thought, what are all these carriage drivers going to do? The world is going to change. There'll be mass unemployment. But you know what? It unleashed probably the biggest change in human history in terms of transporting people to longer distances. So technology, when used properly, is always for the good. And we guys,
Yes.
all of us, when I say guys, I mean it in a gender neutral way, are very, very, lucky to be in the midst of the tech revolution by learning those skills as
Skills.
opposed to watching from the sidelines.
Yeah, yeah. And this would explain why so many of our learners here who've had several years of experience, and this is also a very interesting question that they have been running a digital marketing agency for 12 years. They've already done a bachelor's of computer applications and an MBA from India. And post that, they have 12 years of experience. Now they want to transition to a master's in data science or in project management. And they're looking at US as their first choice. So how is this possible at all? And, what would you say about their profile?
Yeah. See, first of all, it is possible. No question about it because you've got the experience and you've got the skills and you're learning a new skill in data science, which is a very much in demand skill. And I think 36 is not, it's not old. Don't, if that's your concern, I would say don't worry about that, Abhijit, because
Yeah.
you've got a long way to go. That
Hmm.
being said, the thing to consider is at 36, most people are at a different life stage in terms of our personal lives, and those are things only you can decide. Because,
Yes.
when you're in your 20s, one tends to have less obligations, less liability. In your 30s, that changes, and that's something only you can work through. So, yeah, yeah.
Yes. Thank you, Shrikant. And another very interesting question, because this is from a learner who is coming from a arts background and they have a BA with economics, political science, and sociology. They also hold 7 years of work experience and want to do an MBA now. However, they would like to do it in a STEM field. Yeah.
Yeah. So, look, the fact that you're looking to go to STEM is actually very creditable. I don't think anything precludes someone from an arts background going to STEM. If you look at the UK, for example, the most sought after undergrad degree at Oxford is a PPE, politics, philosophy, and economics. Rishi
Mm.
Sunak has a PPE from Oxford. Just to give you an example. And the
Right.
reason is because when you're studying the arts, when you're studying Shakespeare, when you're studying economics, you're studying how humans evolved. And that's at the heart of any business. So the other good thing for someone like you is that you've got that experience. If you were going straight from a degree to a STEM thing, I'd say that's probably a bridge too far because you've got to learn some basic STEM skills. But the experience that you have is really going to help, I think, making that transition.
Yeah.
And there are lots of people who make mid-career transitions. Now, I don't want to sugarcoat it. You'll probably have to work a bit harder to catch up with the rest of your class because they will come with certain advantages having done STEM before. But that as long as you apply yourself and you skill yourself outside of the classroom, honestly, I don't see why you can't do it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And to answer to that question, because you're looking for a STEM specialization, indeed, we do have a MBA from Golden Gate University, which is a university based out of California, San Francisco. And the specialization that we offer is in industrial organization psychology, which is related to the field of psychology. It offers subjects like organizational behavior, which is again a very hot subject, so to say. So yes, like Shrikant has mentioned, there are plenty of opportunities. Uh, Shrikant, we do have a couple more questions. And if you would be okay to take them up, then I think
Sure,
we
no
can just
problem,
shoot
no
a
problem. Let's
couple
keep
more.
going. Yeah.
Yes. Right. One of the questions from the learners is, how easy is the US embassy or the visa process on OPT approval?
See, honestly, that's a question we
Yeah.
cannot answer because
Mm.
the embassy has certain policies and guidelines, but they're also privy to information on what current thinking in the US government is that we are not privy to. So I wouldn't say it's easy or difficult.
Yes.
Frankly, you just have to go through the process.
Okay. Right. Right.
But all I will say this is the pressure is highest on H-1B visas. As we know, there's a very strict quota because on H-1B visas, there's a very strong cap on how many students, I mean, how many
Yeah.
employees can come. But on student visas, there are no such caps, or the caps have not been breached. In fact, America welcomes students to come into their country because they believe that master students are value accretive to the economy. So I would say there shouldn't be an issue on if you've got your paperwork in order, and UpGrad will obviously help you through it. So
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. All right. There's a one question which the learner has come up with several times. And the question is that they would like to pursue an MS in data science, but they're also confused about whether to pursue a core MS in data science or to also do it in combination with AI. Because, AI or ML, they are really sought after today in terms of the skill sets by employers.
Look, frankly, in today's environment, I'd say if you had a choice of doing data science with a bit of AI thrown in,
Okay.
I would take that option because
Mm.
AI is going to be a bit like electricity, right? None of
Yeah.
us know how electricity flows, but we all use it every day. In 5, 10 years, AI is going to be used in data science, it's going to be used in core programming, it's going to be used in multiple use cases. So I would say if you had the option, go with a data science course that has some AI component as well, or a combination. Yes.
That's definitely better, you would say. Yeah. Right. Uh, for the in the interest of time, I'm just going to take a couple more questions. And those of you who feel that you would like further guidance on your queries, my colleague Ayushi is going to place you know contact details, and you can connect with one of our academic counselors, and they'd be very happy to help you. So Arushi, if you're there on the call, I request you to kindly put on the details in the chat, and you can get in touch as soon as we close this webinar or even after. Now, one of the questions which has come up again, uh, Srikant, is with respect to a learner wanting to pursue a career in finance, but they are confused between an MBA or CA, pursuing chartered accountancy. So I believe that there are certain financial certifications, finance certifications that you do in the US. Which one would you suggest is the right route for them?
Yeah, see, frankly, for a student going internationally to the US, I would say an MBA is probably a better option because, a CFA in the US is a bit like a CA in India. There's a very strong process. You've got to go through it. You've got to do the right internships, etc. Whereas an MBA is a much more broad-based, probably more internationally recognized course. So you could take your career in the US more global. So frankly, I would probably say an MBA is a better option.
MBA is a better option. Yes, because it offers you a more generalized kind of a skill set
Exactly.
and your
Exactly.
transferable skill set, right? And speaking of chartered accountancy, I think that it's a professional course, and
Yes.
yes,
And just to close out, sorry, one point I want to make was the MBA will probably give you access to a broader array of jobs post
yes,
completion than a CA. A
right.
CA will probably make you a clear candidate for jobs in the finance function, but an MBA could straddle multiple functions.
Multiple functions, yes, absolutely. And for any learner who's coming from another professional field, like let's say, for example, and this is one of the questions the audience has, they've done an LLM and they wish to pursue a career in the United States. So what would the OPT be for them? And would it open them up to practice in the US, so to say?
Yeah. So let me take that in bits and pieces. I think
Yeah.
if they pick a course where the LLM is eligible as the undergrad course, I think, of course, the OPT would be eligible for them. Absolutely no question. But I don't think that'll allow you to practice in the US as a lawyer. In the US, to be a qualified lawyer, you've got to have done an American law degree. On
Hmm.
top of that, you've got to qualify in the state that you're going to operate in as a lawyer. So you could get a job as a professional, but you would not be able to practice law in the US on the back of these degrees.
Correct, correct. So that would mean you would have to clear the bar examination.
Yes. For example, the
Yes.
New York bar is different from the California bar.
California
No,
bar.
so
Yeah,
exactly.
that's right. Yes. Thank you, Shrikant. And before we close, a final question that how is the situation of the pharma industry in the US? Because also healthcare is a very emerging area in the US, and a lot of people go to the US to pursue a career in healthcare management, so to say. And they are looking forward to, in fact, do an MS in pharmaceutical sciences from University of Michigan, Ann Arbor. So, what kind of opportunities are out there for them?
No, look, pharma is a high growth industry. America spends more on per capita healthcare than any other country in the world. They spend probably 3 times as much. And which is why, no surprise, the world's biggest pharma companies, 7 of the top 10 pharma companies in the world are US headquartered or have the US as the biggest market. Think of Pfizer, think of Bristol Myers Squibb, think of Johnson and Johnson. You name it, they're all in the US. They're all on the East Coast in that New Jersey, Connecticut corridor. So opportunities are huge, especially for STEM skills, because today pharma is all about drug discovery and getting drugs faster to market, medicines faster to market. There's a very defined process which involves a lot of data, which involves clinical trials, and that those are all specialist skills that you can build through those pharmaceutical courses. Uh,
Right.
I would just say that U of M Ann Arbor is a fantastic university, is very reputed. So and personally, I've lived in Ann Arbor. It's a wonderful town to live in. It's probably the most liberal town east of Berkeley, California. So you will enjoy it. But yeah,
Yeah.
watch out for the snow in this in the winter.
Correct. Correct. Thank you. And I think this would also answer the question for Neha, who has asked, is MBA in healthcare management a good option in the US?
It is. It is for
Yes.
sure because
Yeah.
healthcare is a big area where the skills gap is huge. There are
Hmm.
payers and providers who are always looking for good talent, and
Yes.
options do exist.
Yes. All right. Thank you. And on that note, I think we can close this very wonderful and the most informative and insightful discussion. Srikant, we have benefited from your perspective. And I think that it's needless to say, this has also been quite a reality check for some of the audience who is here. But I'm sure all of them have had great takeaways, and they are indeed even more inspired to pursue a career in the United States. Now, on that note, before I close, Shrikant, I would like to put the spotlight on you. And I think we touched upon this very briefly in the webinar about how you've had a global career. And you mentioned that you pursued your MBA from IIM Lucknow, and you started your journey in the US in business development. And you've gradually moved up the ladder to hold very prestigious positions in reputable companies like Capgemini, Infosys, so on. So, any final tips or thoughts for our learners who I'm sure would, love to pursue a global career like yours?
Oh wow, that's a big question. I think all I'd say
What
is
was
this,
the
right?
strategy that you employed? What worked for you?
Yeah.
And
So I
yeah,
think, frankly, there was no, I'd like to say there was a fantastic pre-thought out strategy with 36
yeah,
slides that I just followed point by point. But the answer is no. I think any career, frankly, is a combination of attitude, skills, and luck and opportunity, frankly. One
yes,
can't control the luck, but one can help address the luck if you have the right attitude, which means you keep trying. You're intellectually curious. You're always sort of out there to learn more, and make sure you're on top of your skills. And I know this sounds like a very very global yarn as they call it, but I can tell you that one of the reasons why I've probably learned faster is I've always put my hand up for new roles which are outside my comfort zone, which test me a bit. And let me give you examples. Like I said,
yeah.
I moved from India to the US. I left a fairly cushy job with ITC to join
Mm,
tech services at a time when tech services was not what it is today.
mm.
I joined on the East Coast of the US. I was based in New York City, and Infosys decided we want to open an office in Michigan. I was the first sales guy in Michigan. I actually
Wow.
landed up and I
Mm.
just learned it. And then we were trying to set up a team in Europe. I had the opportunity, and I must be grateful to my family. They agreed to me doing all this, but we moved to Europe. And that's the first time we'd ever traveled to London. So you've got to go with the flow. Opportunities present themselves when they do,
When they
and
do.
you just got to stay the course. I go back to cricket because I'm a big cricket fan. If Jadeja had decided that they lost the game 2 balls before they won the game, they would have lost the game. So it's not over until it's over. So just keep trying. I'd say have the right attitude, have a focus. I think one of the biggest mistakes a lot of people make is they flit from one thing to another, and they expect
Yeah.
success very quickly, and that does not happen. Success is a long-term game.
Yes.
Success is a team sport.
Hmm.
That's all I'd say.
Correct. Thank you. It's incredible to know of your journey. And I think something that I can also take away is that you need to push yourself out of the comfort zone. And like you said, opportunities present themselves, but you need to be prepared to take those opportunities. All
Thank you,
right. So
Rakhi.
thank
It's
you.
been my pleasure. All I'd say to all
Yes.
the people on the call is all the very best. Every career is an adventure. Just live the adventure. Go have fun. You'll do some wonderful things. And I wish you really all the very best.
Right. Thank you, Srikant. Wonderful speaking with you. And thanks to all our audience for joining us. And we wish to host you again very soon.
Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good evening. Yeah.